Leonard Read said, if you wanted to take liberty away from Americans, you had to know how to cook a frog. Leonard Read said, you cannot cook a frog by putting on a pot of boiling water and then throwing the frog in the water. His reflexes are so quick, as soon as his feet touch the water, he would hop away and be free. Leonard Read said the way to cook a frog is to put on a pot of cold water, put the frog in the water, and heat it up bit by bit. And by the time the frog realized he was being cooked, it was too late. That's the same thing with Americans. If anybody came over here talking about taking away all of our freedoms all at once, we would righteously rebel. But they can talk about taking away our freedoms bit by bit as they are. Now, the primary justification for the attack on private property, economic freedom, and privacy is found in people's desire for government to do good. We all say things like, government should care for the poor, government should help the disadvantaged, government should help the elderly, government should help ailing businesses, government should help college students, and other deserving segments of our society. Well, it's nice to say those things, but we have to realize that government has no resources of its very own. That is, those programs coming out of Washington or coming out of your state capital, they don't represent congressmen and senators reaching in their own pockets and sending out their money. Moreover, there's no tooth fairy or Santa Claus that gives them money. Once you recognize that government has no resources of its very own, that forces us to recognize that the only way the government can give one American citizen $1 is to first, through intimidation, threats, and coercion, confiscate that dollar from some other American. We urge government to do things that if a private person did the identical thing, we would roundly condemn him as an ordinary, despicable, low-down thief. Let me give you an example of that. I could see an elderly lady sleeping on a grate in the dead of winter in downtown Washington. The lady needs some medical attention, some food, and shelter. I could walk up to one of you with a gun in my hand and say, give me your $200. Then, having gotten your $200, I go down and buy the lady some medical attention and some food and shelter. Would you find me guilty of a crime? I surely would be guilty of crime. I'd be guilty of theft. That is, taking the rightful property of one person and giving it to another to whom it does not belong. And most Americans can agree with me on that. But I ask, is there a conceptual distinction between that act, where I walked up to one of you and took your $200, and when the agents of the United States Congress, namely the IRS, they say to me, Williams, you know that $200 you earned last week that you planned to buy a nice bottle of Lafite Rothschild Bordeaux wine with it? You will not do that. You'll give it to us, and we will go downtown and help the lady out. Is there any distinction between those two acts? There's none whatsoever. And if you press me for a distinction, the first act, where I walked up to one of you and took your $200, that is illegal theft. The second act is theft. Because keep in mind that keep in mind that theft is described as taking the rightful property of one person and giving it to another to whom it does not belong. But most Americans accept this. That is, most Americans believe that it's okay to forcibly use one American to serve the purposes of another. And keep in mind, again, a working definition of slavery is the forcible use of one person to serve the purpose of another. When God gave Moses the 8th commandment, thou shalt not steal, he did not mean thou shalt not steal unless you got a majority vote in the United States Congress.